Humans are weird. Let's work it out. Wave Rider. Gust incoming! Came the distant shout from one of the humans down the massive canyon. Gust paused her lecture and tucked her body close down to the lichen-covered rock she and her cluster of graduate students were perched on. The group fell silent as the ever-present canyon wind suddenly increased from its constant whispering to a brief roar. Gust felt the resulting pressure difference pushing her up and clung to the rock. It was highly unlikely that the wind would lift her mass, but she had to set a good example for her students. The cluster likewise twitched, and the wind surged over their fuzzy heads. It finally died down, leaving their auditory membranes ringing with lingering vibrations. Gust was about to resume her measurements on the teal lichen that she was considering for domestication in their colonies in the roots above the canyon, when one of her graduate students clicked an absently polite interruption. "Yes?" asked without really turning her attention away from the lichen. "What are the humans doing?" asked, holding up a clarifier in the direction of the mammals in question. Gust fought down a massive shrug of annoyance. As she expected, everyone in her graduate students was now turned to focus down the canyons towards the docks, where the human submarines surfaced to take their crews out for light and air. Gust didn't know what the humans were doing. She quite frankly didn't care what the humans were doing. Their researches into the mining potential of the canyons and caverns was no doubt productive for the colony and the system in general, but had no effect whatsoever on her own work. Still, the web-like all-encompassing curiosity of a fuzzy young grad student was something to be harnessed and trained, not suppressed. "What do you observe?" Gust asked without looking up from her sample. "The humans are gathering at the end of the wave-riding bridge," one stated, taking the clarifier and studying the situation. "They all look very excited," another offered. Gust was about to inquire how they determined excitement in a bipedal mammal, but another student interjected. "Their large motor movements are faster and shorter than usual," he said, "and their voices have risen in pitch and frequency." "It's only the dock crews," another clarified. "There are no submarines docked at the moment. They are arranging themselves in some specific order. They are flexing their muscles. That means they are preparing for sudden movement, not bracing for impact. The wind bar!" The careful observations broke down into chitterings of stress and excitement that finally succeeded in pulling away from her work. She stalked over to the student holding the clarifier. "Do you remember that these humans are trained professionals and will not stupidly endanger themselves?" she reminded them as she took the device. There was an uneasy chitter of agreement as she studied the situation. The wind boar was indeed seeming to menace the humans on the dock. The high wind gusts in the canyon, coming on top of the steady, constant breeze, created a long series of tall wave crests that bore down the canyons. It was thanks to these unpredictable and powerful surges that the Trisk science teams had to limit themselves to these high ledges, far from the water's edge. The humans, sturdier and more endothermic, and slightly more aquatic, had simply built their docks to withstand the boar waves and trained to work around them. One of the modifications they had insisted was necessary was one wave-riding bridge from one dock to another. This bridge consisted of individual floats that were connected with cables and rested on the water's surface. The design did indeed negate much of the stress caused by the waves, but the design had always struck as impractical. She could not conceive how the bipeds, always on the verge of falling over, could hope to use the bridge during the boar waves. It looked like she was about to get her answer. The humans were clustered at the end of the wave-riding bridge. Her students had described the situation well. The boar waves struck the end of the bridge, and the structure began to undulate up and down. With a resounding whoop from his massive lungs, the leading human rushed out onto the bridge. He made it nearly a quarter of the way across before following into the cold waters of the canyon. Frantic chittering broke out from her students, and Gust raised a gripping appendage sternly to silence them. "How are the other humans reacting?" she demanded. There was a long pause as her students considered the question. "They are laughing," one observed. "Another human has already replaced him on the bridge. She fell in too. None of the other humans are offering to aid them. The fallen ones appear to be laughing as well. They are swimming for the soft dock. The first human is running back to the main cluster. They have formed a queue. Not all of the humans are participating. The cluster fell silent to mull over these observations, and handed the clarifier back to its owner with a profoundly fatalistic shrug. Below them, human after human was hurtling themselves across the undulating wave-riding bridge in what appeared to be an utterly futile attempt to get across it. It was obvious that this was some bizarre form of play behavior. There was nothing at the other end of the bridge to tempt them, and their dinghy was conveniently docked beside the main cluster of humans. Gisk knew very well that her own cluster of highly educated university graduates was not going to achieve anything more practical than processing this display of hubris and endothermy on the part of the humans. She might as well pack up her tools and return to her mobile office while they observed the cacophony on the docks. She had several grant proposals to write, and something productive might as well be accomplished. Humans are weird, let's work it out. Available on Indiegogo for the month of October 2022. Monty Python meets Star Trek in this third book of human absurdity. This book joins its two siblings in a trilogy of human madness. You can find the first two books, author-signed first editions, at Indiegogo with book 3, or you can go on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are available to get your copies of the first two books. Humans Are Weird, Let's Work It Out, Book 3 in the series, available on Indiegogo, October 2022.